If you were to tell me 3 years ago that my anxiety and depression was coming from unaddressed childhood trauma, I would think, you're talking to the wrong girl. I had a great childhood. I grew up in a loving two-parent household with two incredible sisters. I had memorable birthday parties, fun family vacations, and for the 2 seconds I played basketball, I felt support from my family at every game. To say I had childhood trauma was to say I had a terrible childhood, and that wasn't true. But even while I had a fairly happy childhood, I was experiencing paralyzing anxiety and depression in my young adulthood. What was the reason for this? Turns out, I had an incomplete understanding of what childhood trauma actually was. But even more, I did not understand the concept of social wounds. I thought childhood trauma only meant I experienced physical or sexual abuse, as I've heard many stories from survivors and have deep compassion for that community. But I learned childhood trauma could also include being teased on the playground at recess, watching everyone open up a gift on Christmas, but not having one to open yourself, being singled out for a bad grade in front of the whole class, feeling neglected when the new baby came. These are all examples of childhood traumas, more specifically, social pain, the type of pain that can unexpectedly stay with you for years. According to a book published in 2011 by APA on social pain is what you experience as a result of interpersonal rejection or loss, such as rejection from a social group, bullying, or even the loss of a loved one. I'm sure you can recall some moments in your life, big or small, where you've experienced this kind of rejection, not just in childhood, but at any point of your life. We all will. But even while social pain is inevitable, freedom is possible. I first experienced social pain at the age of 9. I was at a 3-day camp with my 4th grade class, and before this trip, I can make friends with the bad of an eye. But after, that changed. It was on the last night, as 30-plus girls settled into our cabin, our counselor decided to end the night with a question. "What was your favorite part of camp?" she asked the room. And a girl, one of the more popular ones, responded first with, "Well, I pretty much like everyone here in the room, except for her." She points to me. I was sitting on the top of the last bunk in the room, and I shrunk when all 30-plus girls turned to look at me. They all immediately began to see me as the only girl in the room that wasn't liked. I can't remember how I felt in that moment. Shocked, confused, horribly embarrassed. Tears were threatening to fall as my heart began to pound with so many eyeballs staring in my direction. And no one came to my rescue. Instead, the counselor called for lights out, and in one fell swoop, I was sitting there alone, in the dark, my mind anxiously racing with the nagging thought, what does she not like about me? Even further, what sets me apart from the other girls in the room that makes me unworthy of her approval? 14 years later, I never got the answer. Believe it or not, the pain I experienced that night, feeling rejected and excluded, stayed with me for years. In my teen years, I would walk into rooms assuming I wasn't liked. I would think, everyone here in this room is great, except for me. Or when a really cool opportunity would present itself, I'd think, well, this chance would be great for anybody, except for me. By the time I turned 20, I couldn't say one kind thing about myself. Over time, my experience of finding out one person didn't like me turned into a self-sabotaging, degrading echo that nobody liked me. And after spending many years at that point being knee-deep in anxiety and depression, I realized I didn't like myself either. The National Library of Medicine helped explain why. Their research shows that social pain, which is what I experienced at camp, could be argued to be just as distressing as physical pain because it activates the same underlying neural machinery. And when I learned that my rejection wound could hurt just as bad as a physical injury, all because of one seemingly insignificant, embarrassing night at camp, I realized just how powerful social pain could be for me and for you too. Although social pain is an event none of us can escape, the chance to break free and heal those social wounds is available to us all. Social pain is inevitable, but freedom is possible. How, you may ask? Through community. The narrative I began to believe the moment she pointed her finger and excluded me that night was that it was better to be alone. Therefore, what used to come easy to me, making friends, became difficult. I began to isolate myself so that I would never experience rejection again. If I were alone, I thought, no one would be able to decide whether or not they liked me. People couldn't reject me because I wouldn't even give them the chance. You might be tempted to think the same when you experience social pain, to opt out of community altogether to avoid it. But while that may feel safer, loneliness only hurts you. In fact, many researchers and health professionals consider loneliness and social isolation as health risk. One of the ways the CDC describes loneliness is feeling like you don't have meaningful, close relationships or a sense of belonging, and social isolation as the lack of relationships with others and little to no social support or contact. The two together have been linked to increase the risk for heart disease and stroke, addiction, suicidality and self-harm, and depression and anxiety, the very things I struggled with for so long since that night at camp. In fact, according to PBS, the US General Surgeon stated that widespread loneliness in the United States poses health risk as deadly as smoking up to 15 cigarettes daily. It is not good for any of us to be alone. Loneliness doesn't help heal our social wounds. To fight off the risk of loneliness, we need social connectedness. The CDC says social connectedness is when you feel like you belong and have the support and care you need, as well as the number, quality, and diversity of relationships. The research shows that people with meaningful social connections have less stress and better sleep, better overall health that could lead to a longer, high-quality life, and a sense of belonging. You only experience social connectedness in community. When you opt out of community as an attempt to avoid social pain, which is what I did for many years, you're not protecting yourself. Instead, you're holding yourself back from experiencing the fruitful, high-quality life only found in deep, meaningful connections, the nutrients you need in order to break free from your social wounds. Now, the question becomes, how do you find that community and make those connections? You find them by being the kind of person you needed when you experienced social pain, by sitting with the lonely, including the outcast, acknowledging the ignored, welcoming the rejected. You cultivate community by going to those on the outside and drawing them in with genuine love, care, and compassion. Not only that, but your social wound will experience a whole new level of healing. Because while you can't go back and change the moment you were socially wounded, You can show compassion to your past self by empowering those who are ostracized in the present. This gives you the chance to treat others the way you want it to be treated in your social pain. That's powerful. I get a sense of justice from my 9-year-old self every time I initiate moments of inclusion instead of exclusion. When I advocate for the outcast, the black sheep, it feels like I'm advocating for myself too. So when you see someone sitting alone, not because they choose to, but because no one is choosing them, empathize with them. Encourage them to pull up a chair. Make room at your table. Let them know there's a place for them. That person people avoid for no good reason, make it a point to notice them. Speak to them. Show them that you care in the same way you wish someone showed they cared about you. That's how you build community, by channeling your social pain for the empowerment of others. And when you do, it will begin to free you from your social wounds too. So, while I didn't have a terrible childhood, I did have social pain. And my social wounds began to heal when including others became a big deal to me. This could also be your testimony. You don't have to let social pain keep you stuck in isolation. The community that is just right for you will free you from your social wounds, producing true, lasting restoration in your life. So I'm urging you, cultivate that community by inviting those on the outside in. Treat people like they matter, because they do. And your social wound will heal each time you have the privilege to show them that. We were never meant to live life alone. We were designed for community, which gives us hope to believe that even while we can't avoid social pain, we can heal from that pain every time. Social pain is inevitable, but freedom is possible. Thank you.